everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who is here week after week watching me and joining me and supporting me. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for subscribing to wherever I am, liking the pages. And today I also want to take a special time to say thank you to LD, who keeps doing a lot of favors for me. Although we are partners, he is being extremely going out of his way for me so I could be here with you. And well, he takes care of an important package for me. All right. Today we have a great guest, phenomenal guest, and I know you guys have been waiting for him, and we had to reschedule 1 week due to the fact that I was not feeling well, and I was very blessed that he agreed to come back, and here he is, Preston Dennett. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing really good. Thank you for being here with me, and thank you for being so courteous when I had to reschedule. I do apologize. It's these viruses are going around. It's just they catch you by surprise. So
I get it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to come in at the last minute either. But
that's okay. That's okay. You're here. You're here. That's the important thing. So tell our audience a little bit about you. I'm sure a lot of them know you. A lot of them email me already. So, but for the rest that kind of don't know you.
Sure. Well, what can I say? I grew up very skeptical of UFOs, anything paranormal, life after death, ghosts, Bigfoot, you name it. I just did not believe because none of it was being treated seriously in any way, really. I mean,
Right.
UFOs are certainly not taught in schools still. I mean, they're
Yeah.
starting to. But yeah, I mean, I would hear about people seeing ETs on TV occasionally, and they described them. I mean, the way it was described sounded to me like Star Trek. I really expected ETs to look very different from us,
Right.
which of course turns out not to be true. And that all changed, and thankfully I was pretty young. Let's see, 1986, I was 21 years old.
Okay.
No, I'll never forget the actual day, Glenda, because it changed my life. November 17,
There you go.
1986. A report came on the news about a sighting over Alaska. Very well-known sighting for those who are into UFOs. Captain Kenju Torochi, a Japanese commercial airliner, reported a UFO.
Right.
And that got me curious because my older brother Mark said he'd seen one a couple of years earlier. And I didn't believe him, but I asked him. And boy, did I get a shock because he described this incredible metallic disc with lights around it, a dome on top, silent treetop level. He chased it in his car. Yeah, down Reseda Boulevard. This is LA.
Okay.
Where I was based at that time. And I'm like looking at him like, Mark, are you kidding me? He's like, listen, you know my friends Phil and Greg, right? I'm like, yeah. He says, they were there with me. Call them. Here's their numbers. You know them. So I did. And that's got the ball rolling for me. I found out that I had 2 other family members who had had sightings. Gosh, 3, 4 friends at least. 3 people at work where I worked at a business office. So I joined MUFON, Mutual UFO Network.
Right.
And I was going to disprove it. I bought a couple of UFO books. And of course, I couldn't disprove it. Found out there was a cover-up. I mean, it was a mess from day one. That first year was really difficult for me.
Of course, you're dealing with all this brand new stuff that you were skeptical about, and then all of a sudden, here it is. So what made you so skeptical? Was it because nobody talked about it, or?
I blame our government it took me a while to realize that, I was a victim, really, and I think a lot of us are, of
Okay.
a really brutal, carefully orchestrated, well-funded
Mhm.
cover-up and a disinformation campaign. Because our governments, our
Mhm.
military, is basically, and have been for years until very recently, saying that every single UFO sighting can be explained in three ways.
Mhm.
It's either a hoax, it's a
Mhm.
hallucination, or it's a misperception.
Mhm.
And if you think you saw a UFO, you're sadly mistaken. And I believed it. I trusted authority.
Right. Right.
And I think that's one reason. Another was I was making a series of completely false assumptions
Right.
due to my complete ignorance of the subject. I assumed that people who saw UFOs were uneducated. I
Mm.
assumed they were alone. I
Mm.
assumed that it was in some rural place out in the country. Uh, I assumed that
Mhm.
UFOs, meaning ET craft,
Right.
could not get to Earth because the stars are very far away.
Right.
But yeah, not on our technology they can't. So yeah, it was a series of false assumptions that really just kept put the blinders right over my eyes very effectively.
Mm. Mm. So now you have gifts of your own, um, and and when did you become aware of those? The source of your gifts?
In terms of like psychic abilities,
Yes.
yeah, I never really thought of myself that way. I kind of
Mhm.
look at everybody now. I'm like, we're all psychic if you can just tune into it.
Right. Right.
But I will
Mhm.
tell you, I had a very strange experience at age 9,
Okay.
which, yeah, and I haven't talked about it much because I don't know why. uh, but I was watching TV with my sister Victoria, 1 year older than me, and we
Mhm.
were alone, just sitting there in the living room and turned on, it's called Treasure Hunt.
Okay.
This was, well, let's see, I was born in 65, so that had to be around 74 or
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
I'm estimating.
Mhm.
And it's just your typical game show.
Right.
But this weird feeling came over me that I knew everything that was going to happen.
Mhm.
And I pointed to the audience. I'm like, see that lady? She was a black lady.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, they're going to pick her. And Victoria looks at me like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, wait, I don't. And of course they did. And she got to
Mhm.
come up to this stage and play.
Mhm.
And to actually play the game, you had to pick the correct canister out of 3.
Right.
I'm like, it's the one on the right. The one on the right has the flowers in it. I'm telling you. And of course, I was right. And
Mhm.
we laughed. We're like, wow, this is funny. But the game show went on, and I'm like,
Right.
doon, 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 doon. And Victoria's looking at me like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I really don't know.
Right.
But then it came to the big denouement, the climax of the show,
Right.
where I think it was about 75 boxes,
Mhm.
all cardboard boxes. Some were really tiny, some were huge,
Mhm.
and all were numbered. And there's a check in one of them for, I think it was 50,000 or
Which
something
in
like
and back then, I mean, it's a lot now, but back then
that.
was, woof, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, and I honestly don't remember which number it was, but I pointed to one. I'm like, Victoria, the check is in that box. And she's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, yeah, it is. And of course it was. And she didn't guess it, the contestant. And then they're like, oh, it's actually in this box. And we rolled on the ground laughing. I didn't know what psychic was.
Right.
So I'm just like, I don't know what happened. And
Mhm.
that never happened again. I just kind of lived my life until there was a huge tragedy.
Okay.
My mom passed away
I'm
very
so sorry.
suddenly, very young. Thank you, age 49,
Mhm.
uh, of a heart attack. Just came
Mm.
out of the blue. And it was 2 weeks later, I saw her spirit, full color apparition. I mean, right there in front of me.
Right.
And I'm like, gosh, I must really be sad. So I am now hallucinating. I didn't think ghost.
Right.
I do now.
Yes.
And that's when well, it was actually several months later, I started having these really lucid dreams,
Mhm.
or I call them dreams, where she'd come into my room.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Glenda, what would happen is someone would walk into my room and it would wake me up. So I'd sit up in bed and it was my mom. I'm
Right.
like, oh my God, what are you doing here? I thought you had died. I mean, I know you're, what? She's like, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know I'm okay. And it was all telepathic.
Right.
And it happened like 20 times over
Mm-hmm.
the next year or so. I started to lose my mind because I'm like, either I am going crazy or I'm being visited.
Right.
Because I knew it was her. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. You could just tell by the quality of her presence. She would
Mm-hmm.
leave and I'd wake up for real. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I thought I was awake. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, but I was. So I was like confused. And that got me interested in dreams and lucid dreaming. And I picked up this book by
Mm-hmm.
Robert Monroe,
Mm-hmm.
who, if you've heard about out of body experiences, you know this guy,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes, I do.
And his book was amazing. The story of his own out of body experiences,
Mm-hmm.
which was very believable and really exciting and kind of
Mm-hmm.
scary.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, because he says you can do this if you want, and here's the exercises.
Right. Right.
I'm like, okay, well, okay, let's meditate. Let's do your visualizations. Let's see if this works.
Right.
And darned if it didn't work, and it didn't take me long at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first week, I increased my dream recall. By the second week, I was having really lucid dreams. And after a month and a half, almost 2 months, I had my first out of body experience, which was very short,
Mm-hmm.
but so exciting. And I knew right then, I mean, I popped out of my body. I flew across the room. I went to the bathroom. I'm like, wow, I'm doing this. This is real. There's life after death.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he said is true. There's my body on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. And it pulled me right back in.
Right.
So
You were too excited.
exactly. And I did again, same thing, did it a third time, got
Right.
really scared, thought I died, but just doubled down on the meditation and exercises and did them every weekend until I could hold it up for a minute and then 2 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
then enough to leave my room.
Mm-hmm.
Started
Okay.
walking through walls and flying around the neighborhood and that is when I started having precognition.
Okay.
I would come back from these OBEs
Mm-hmm.
with a dream and it would come true the next day. Almost not every time, but gosh, a lot.
Okay.
And it was so interesting because these were sometimes really bizarre dreams. Like, well, this one can't come true. I know this one can't. Because I remember there was an elephant in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this has got to be symbolic. Elephant in the room.
Right. Right.
It was this cute baby elephant. I love animals, especially baby animals. Who doesn't?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know exactly what this means, but I'll figure it out because I was very into dreams, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And of course, that day I turned on, TV was on, and they had started a new campaign for the lottery called Baby Lotto, and there was a baby elephant and it was running all through people's houses. I'm like, oh my gosh, the feeling of, there was my dream
There
on
was your
TV.
dream. Wow.
So I had a lot of those. Like a guy, I dreamt a guy got killed by his pet goat. I'm like, gosh, this feels like a real dream. This can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
Mm.
I was on the news the next day.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, and that kind of transferred to honest to God premonitions and clairvoyance,
Mm-hmm.
and remote viewing even, and occasional telepathy.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, what is happening to me?
It's once you open up and you're willing, it just one comes and then goes to the other one and it goes to the other one. So it sounds like you really open up all of your gifts. Now, do you have any idea, or do you aware of the source of your gifts? Were they a family thing, or was it just you? And the other family members that did see UFOs, were they also gifted?
Yes, to an extent. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
had a family that was very scientifically minded, and
Mm-hmm.
most of them were really skeptical of all of this.
Right.
And boy, they were looking at me with the side of their eyes like, I'm like, you guys, UFOs are real. And guess what? I'm going out of body. And I go, poor Preston. He has lost his mind. Preston, I'm like,
Right.
no, for real.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Mark,
Mm-hmm.
he definitely has gifts. He could, whenever anyone would lose something, he'd just kind of sit down. It's like, okay, let's search here. And he would find things. He had this incredible knack for
Wow.
finding things.
That's wonderful.
And he, of course, married this lady who's a complete contactee and hugely psychic.
Okay. So that.
So it really started. And my little sister, Valerie, yeah, I remember one day she woke up, she's like, I know everything that's going to happen. That matchbook, I knew it would be there. She completely panicked. I'm like, it's okay, Valerie. This is a good thing. Enjoy it. She's like, no, it's freaking me out. I think it's us that is doing this.
Right.
But, sometimes you do get communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering about that. So one day, because you can get answers if you ask, right?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, definitely.
And one day, how does this psychic stuff really work?
Right.
And so when you have an out of body experience, for me, I'm like, I set an intention. I'm like, tonight I want to visit the other side. I want to learn about a past life.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go to the Akashic Library. I'd like to visit an enlightened master, whatever, a healing temple, place of learning. Well, I went to bed. I'm like, I need to know how this psychic stuff works. Where am I getting this from?
Right.
And I had my OBE and I'm flying to this place, and there was a spirit guide, and they were sitting in this place, and they had a direct pipeline to source, I guess. It's like this whole nerve, like a brain's, what do you call neurons?
Right.
And there were all these little pipelines going down to various people, and one's coming to me. I'm like, oh my God. And she was sending, facilitating, I guess would be the best way of putting it. I'm like, well, okay, I'm not sure I'm getting the full picture here, but I'm definitely getting an idea of it.
So for you, the way you described it, I would say it would be source. Source gives it the information to our guides, who then kind of translate it so we understand it.
Yeah.
So, and now in school and stuff like that, were they kids that believed in UFOs and it was in the 60s, so there was a lot of controversial moments there. Or did you have any friends at that time that?
No, it never came up. I never remember anyone ever talking about UFOs at all through my childhood.
Okay.
It was weird because I grew up in Topanga Canyon, which turned out to have a lot of activity.
Yes, that's one of the places with the most activity.
I mean, it really is. I ended up, investigating a whole wave of activity and writing a book on it.
Yes. So tell us about the book.
Yeah, it's UFOs over Topanga. It was one of my, well, not my first book, but one of my early books. My first was all about healing cases.
Right.
But this one, this huge wave of sightings occurred over my hometown. And having lived there, I knew a lot of people. So I had all these interviews. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was talking to my sister-in-law, Christy. She's like, you need to write a book about this. This is amazing. Because cars were being chased down the road. One lady had a UFO land next to her house. They took her on board. They were examining her pregnancy. Another guy was a teacher at a college. He described his encounter. Another college professor. I mean, I had a lot of good witnesses.
Right.
And amazing accounts. So yeah, she's like, you need to put a book together. So I did. And it described sightings and landings and car chases and onboard experiences and face-to-face visitations. One lady in Topanga had a ET visit her, and she says the only real effect it had was afterwards I felt compelled to collect every seed I could. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, I think this is what they want me to do.
Okay.
And it was
Huh?
so interesting because she would, wouldn't let anyone eat an apricot or a peach. She's like, give me your pit. I need it. And this is a big thing among contactees about
Yes.
preserving the planet and
Right.
growing your own food,
Mm-hmm.
going off grid and all that. So that was my first clue, first real contactee that sort of got the message from
Right.
the ETs. But I tried to sell that book. I sent it out to 50 publishers. And no one would take it.
Oh,
Can you
wow.
imagine? And I
Wow.
finally found Llewellyn Books, and they took it.
Right.
And that book did so well. it was. I mean, I was just so pleased with how well it was received. I'm like,
Mm,
gosh,
very good. Very good. So we put up the link to your Amazon, uh, so they could find all of your books there.
oh, cool.
Yes. So when you started writing the books, did you feel like you were doing the right thing? You know, you get a feeling of completion when you do something that you're meant to do. Or were you a little hesitant because it was such a controversial
Yeah,
subject?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Glenda, because it did feel right. I felt like I had come home. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I was working and I did work full time for 35 years
Mm-hmm.
doing bookkeeping, and I was not happy. But when I
Right.
would sit down and write, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew it from a young age. Around age 9, I wrote a poem and it won a contest.
Oh, congratulations.
And I'm like, wow, I think I'm supposed to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very nervous about it because what if I couldn't do it? I had a lot of fear surrounding this because
Right.
I kind of knew it was my path and I didn't want to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I just said, you know what? This is what I have to do.
Right.
And I found this out, when you don't resist, when you follow your excitement,
Mm-hmm.
when you do what you're meant to do, the doors open, the red
Yes.
carpet rolls out before you,
Yes.
synchronicity starts, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, wow. So I started selling articles
Mm-hmm.
nonstop to newspapers and magazines. I was getting the cover. Like, whoa. I got calls to be on the radio.
Mm.
Very quickly, I got calls to be on TV.
Very
I
good.
was shy. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But it was so much fun. I just embraced it. And yeah, it was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But after a year of really digging in, I knew this was a real subject,
Right.
UFOs,
Mm-hmm.
which quickly bled into the paranormal.
Yes.
I knew it was real. I knew it was important.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Vitally important, because we were being lied to, and that infuriated me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our
Mm-hmm.
tax dollars were being spent to make all these poor people who were looking for answers,
Mm-hmm.
who had no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
This needed to come out,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
wasn't being treated in any serious way. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I would go on TV, they would have a debunker to try to bash my research and attack me. I'm like, what field of research has this?
Wow. Wow.
What is it about UFOs that is setting people off?
Mm.
So
Well,
yeah, it was difficult. I got threatened. I received a phone call from some government guy threatening me, like, this is dangerous. You don't know what you're getting into. You could get hurt.
mm.
I'm like, okay, who are you? I was ultimately really flattered because I knew there was life after death. Kill me. Fine, I'm coming back.
Or I'm going to take a break. I'm going to haunt you for a little bit.
Right?
Have a little fun while you're on the other side.
So yeah, I dived into the deep end, and I,
Mm.
was not going to let this go. Mm-mm.
Good, good. And it is true, like you said, once you do something that they're guiding you to do, that it pulls you, whether it's doing something or not doing something, everything, once you make up your mind, it's like everything just, you feel so light and everything feels so right. And doors open and it just creates all this opportunity, and you're like, wait, I've been hesitant to make this decision, and yet everything just seems right.
Yeah, and it's such a good feeling.
Yes, it
All
is.
that, you know, the angst and the
Mm-hmm.
depression, and you're fighting the universe, and you can't, one step forward, two steps back. It's like, why
Right.
can't I get anything done? And
Yes.
ah, why is life so hard? It's because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. 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 Now, in the paranormal field, because you stated it went quickly from UFOs to the paranormal. How did you get there?
Yeah, very
What's
quickly. Because I started honing my interview skills. Initially,
right,
I'm like, "Did you see a UFO? Tell me what you saw."
right.
And people would say, "Tell me." And then I was interviewing this lady who had seen a UFO over her house with her
Hmm.
friend. They all had witnesses, corroborating witnesses. I'm like, "Wow, I was so ignorant. I didn't realize." And she's like, "I have a ghost in my house. Are you interested in that?" I'm like, "Oh no, ghosts? Okay, Sylvia, tell me what is going
Right.
on." And she described how she had this male ghost who would
Hmm.
flush the toilet and open and close doors and turn on off lights, footsteps, the typical activity.
Hmm.
And she's like, you can talk to my mom and my sister, but they won't believe you because they've never seen it. It's just me. I don't know why. I later found out that that is not too uncommon.
Correct.
If you're not open to it, you will easily explain away a knocking noise or
Uh huh.
footstep.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting because this particular haunting escalated. There was one event which was so super interesting. They had rented out the house, not telling the tenants that there was a ghost because it's
Right.
just Sylvia. The others weren't seeing it, so
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But her tenant called and said, something happened. I need to know. Have you ever had any intruders? Has anyone ever broken into the house? She's like, no, no, no.
Right.
This is Topanga. It's pretty rural. It's a out of the way spot. Uh, and the tenant said, well, I was taking a shower and the phone rang. She's listening to Foreigner or the Eagles on the
Right.
radio and taking a shower. All the doors are locked. All the windows are locked. Her husband's at work.
Uh huh.
And the phone rings. And she's
Okay.
like, well, I'm not going to answer it. I'm in the shower.
Right.
It stopped ringing, and she got out of the shower, and the phone rang again. And she answered it, and it's her husband. He's like, who's there? She's like, what are you talking about? He said, someone answered the phone. She says, no, I
Ooh.
was in the shower. And the phone's on the hook. What are you talking about? He's like, no, no,
Right.
no. Someone answered the phone. And in fact, that song that's playing on the radio, it's still playing. I can hear it now. Who's in the house?
Right.
So she freaks out. She's got chills.
Right.
She's running through the house. The doors are locked. No one's there.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently this ghost answered the phone. That's the only explanation because somebody picked up the phone. He heard the song.
Well, yes, yes, and they're once they're energetic to open and close doors and cabinet doors and lights and all that, they definitely can pick up a phone which has already energy attached to it. So
Yeah, and even
yeah.
communicate it through. Sometimes I really started diving deep into the
Hmm.
paranormal. So I learned to ask, have you had any unexplained experience?
Right.
And that's when I started getting all kinds of stuff of near death experiences, out of
Mm-hmm.
body experiences, reports of
Right.
premonitions.
Right.
We had a family friend who levitated as a child, physically levitated. And
And you did not know that.
I was so mad. I was so mad at all my family and friends and coworkers. I'm like, how could you not tell me this? Because this destroyed my belief system. I had to start over,
Yes,
brick by brick.
of course, of
This
course.
was real. And
Hmm.
I finally got this UFO case, and the guy's like, well, I don't know if you're open to this, but there's a Bigfoot connection. I'm like, oh no, because I had this sneaky suspicion Bigfoot was real.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
I just don't want to go there yet. I can't handle it. I've got my plate. But of course, you have to follow the evidence. You have to follow the
Mm-hmm.
story. And he had a
Mm-hmm.
UFO land in his backyard, followed by a Bigfoot sighting the very next day in the
Wow.
same spot. He had a
Ooh.
telepathic connection. He had a poltergeist outbreak immediately afterwards.
Ooh.
So all of this was clearly connected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to study angels,
Mm-hmm.
demons,
Mm-hmm.
channeling,
Mm-hmm.
multiple personalities, ghosts, levitation, near death experiences, precognition,
Mm-hmm.
all of it. I mean, you can see my bookshelf, and that's not all of them.
Nice collection.
I'm very happy to have all
Yeah.
these books because they've helped me understand a lot of what's
Yes.
going on.
So, each time that you open up a new lead or you follow a new lead, you basically wrote a book to kind of help those that were feeling alone and all that follow you and know that they're not alone.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because I think other writers will tell you this. When you write a book,
Right.
you're doing it because you want to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome that people can come along on the journey with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt so compelled because just finding out UFOs were real, finding out that you could leave your body, finding
Mm-hmm.
out that there was life after death, this was so difficult. It was a real adjustment. And I would be interviewing these people who were skeptics like me and driving
Mm-hmm.
down the road and come upon a landed UFO and have missing time, perhaps,
Right.
or have a ghost come right at them, or
Mm-hmm.
have an out of body experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine what a shock that must be. Having talked to them, I know. uh, and for me, just to sort of learn it's real, I had my own difficulties dealing with it. So, yeah,
Right.
I really wanted to do it not only for myself, but to help other people because it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how it absolutely adjusts, changes everything. A simple sighting can alter
Yes.
your life completely. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not at all unusual for someone to have a near death experience or
Correct.
an onboard encounter or a
Mm-hmm.
ghost encounter or a Bigfoot encounter. Everything changes and they start meditating. They start having mediumship abilities.
Mm-hmm.
They will start having precognition and telepathy. It might
Mm-hmm.
all come at once. Often
Mm-hmm.
does actually.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, it does.
I felt really a sense of responsibility even. Uh,
Now, have you ever had an onboard experience?
I
Yes.
have,
Okay.
and it just tickles me to death to think about it because I remember finding out this was real UFOs. I'm like, I cannot handle this. I'm talking to all these people who are seeing UFOs. I so wanted to see one.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to people, I'm like, well, I was taken on board. And, one lady, she described how she was healed of a cyst and she had
Mm-hmm.
all these amazing adventures. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to have my own sighting before I
Right.
lose my mind. And so I was going out there looking for them at night. I would stay
Right.
out and I'd meditate and I'd be like, where are you? Where are you? And I had a sense that they were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a sense that they knew about me, even, which sounds crazy, but that would later be confirmed for sure.
Mm-hmm.
My first anything at all unusual, I had gone to a UFO meeting down in Santa Monica, which is a
Mm-hmm.
crowded area. And this was a little library. And this contactee, Andy Reese, talked about his sightings and onboard experiences. He says, after my lecture, my presentation, we'll go out into the park next door. It's just a little field. And I'll see if I can call down a UFO for you guys. I'm like, wow, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
do this. I was excited. And
Mm-hmm.
he finished the meeting. There was 100 people there. About 20 of us, 15, followed him out across the street into this field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked. I'm like, well, gosh, I guess these people don't want to see a UFO, or maybe they're skeptical. I don't know, but
Right.
let's give it a go.
Right.
And this is downtown Santa Monica, right? So I'm
Mhm.
looking up in the sky, and I know this area really well. I grew up in this general area,
Mhm.
and you can't see a single star. There's too much light pollution.
Right.
And there's cars driving by on all four sides. I'm like, well, okay, good luck, Andy. I don't think you can do it, but let's go.
Right.
And so he says, let's all join hands and meditate. I'm like, oh no, I did not sign up for this. I was still kind of in skeptic mode, you know,
Right.
and well, fine, that's reasonable, I guess.
Mhm.
And so we did. I'm like, just as long as we don't start chanting, I'm fine. But it was just a quick, quiet your mind and reach out type of thing.
Mhm.
I said, okay, that's good. They're out there. I know they're there. In
Mhm.
fact, he turned it around and says, look right there. I want you to look at that portion of the sky.
Mhm.
Don't stop because they're going to come here any whoosh. I mean, we were looking there less than a minute. I'm going to
Wow.
say 20, 30 seconds. And this enormous bright light came swooping down and off it kind of faded away. I thought, gosh, that looked like a shooting star, but that could not have been a shooting star because who can point to the sky
Mhm.
and call down a shooting star?
Right.
And I mean, you see shooting stars all the time, but not in that downtown area.
No.
This was downtown Santa Monica.
Right.
And I thought, wow. My watch stopped, by the way.
Mhm.
I thought, well,
Mhm.
So that was the first one that I thought, okay, that was interesting, but that is an unexplained anomalous light that I don't know.
Right.
But it went from there. It was not long after that. It was 1992. I'm in the middle of investigating this Topanga Canyon wave.
Mhm.
And I'm going over to my brother's house, Mark, and his wife, Christy. She's the one who
Mhm.
does the art for all my books, by the way.
Oh, beautiful.
I
Beautiful.
just adore them both because they helped me through all this.
Good.
She'd seen a UFO, and
Mhm.
she has all kinds of psychic experience. She was visited by ETs as a young girl.
Mhm.
And so they were helping me with the investigation and just dealing with it emotionally.
Healing, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's late July 1992, and it got late. I had to go to work. I believe it was a Sunday.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I got to go. It's late. It's like almost 11, it's almost midnight.
Mm.
And so I left their house. It's a little house in Woodland Hills,
Mhm.
very densely populated area. Went down this little street they lived on called Golondrina.
Mhm.
Was about to hit Canoga Avenue, which is a fairly busy street, but not at this hour. I'm coming around this hairpin corner at about 3 miles per hour.
Mhm.
It's very steep, very tight. And I saw something, caught my eye. And I looked up, and there was what I thought for a split second was a bird.
Mm.
Instantly discarded that because it was a round ball of light
Yeah.
coming down in an arc towards me. I
Oh,
thought, is that a firecracker? Because it's late July, and there were
right.
still people
Mhm.
using firecrackers. But I knew instantly it wasn't. It was silent, and it was holding its form. And this darn thing was an orb about the size of a golf ball, maybe a little bigger.
Okay.
Yellow, white, leaning towards white, really. Hard edges.
Mhm.
Comes and stops in front of my windshield. It's far away from my computer,
Ooh.
as far as I am now from my computer.
Right.
And I instantly like, okay, this is real. This is not, I don't know. You can't explain it as
Mm.
anything normal. It was looking at me
Yes.
like, whoa. When I'm holding my steering wheels, this thing goes back and forth, back one more time, stops again in front of my windshield, really looking at me. I'm like, there's what's going on here? Who are you? And it darts forward and
Mhm.
goes straight up. And I
Mm.
remember gripping my steering wheel and I'm looking up at it as it disappears. And boom, I'm out. Don't remember going home.
Okay.
I lost the whole experience. I didn't remember it at all until
Mhm.
months later.
Mhm.
It popped back into my head. And it took me even longer to realize, gosh, I had missing time. I don't remember going home. because I would have
Yeah.
turned around. I was less than 3 minutes from Mark and Christy's house.
Right.
So I think I did have missing time. I'm pretty darn sure I was taken on board. I
Mm-hmm.
started having dreams over the years of being on board,
Mm-hmm.
and in the rounded rooms with the steel walls,
Mm-hmm.
and really cool stuff. I mean, it was so cool. And started having sighting after that. 92, I had 4 sightings that were tremendous. So more than that, actually, 6.
Now, I know it's gonna probably blow your mind, but I know that you were in one craft that looked like a hospital, like a surgery room, teaching hospital, where you were and here, for example, at the bottom, and then you could see the windows of different beings looking down. And um, from what I could tell, you were there trying to also help people, other humans.
This doesn't surprise me because I do remember having a meeting with one of these guys on a
Mm-hmm.
craft, and like, well, what do you want to do? What do you, I want to help people. I want to talk them through. I
Mm-hmm.
want to comfort them. And
Yeah.
ultimately, my goal was to do what I do,
Right.
you know,
Right.
which is right. And I, I can totally feel that because I'll put out a book and
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a little sighting like, hey, good job.
Well, I could tell. The only reason I'm saying it is because I was there one of those times with you.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's like wow. Okay, because that's what I used to do. I would go and just hold people's hands just to get them through,
All
make
right,
them
because
feel
you do look a little
comfortable.
familiar to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't say I specifically remember what you're
No,
talking about, but
right.
I do remember once being on board a craft and we were doing these little experiments on free energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing my sister-in-law on board. Once she was doing art and I was being counseled.
Right.
And
Right.
I remember
Yeah.
seeing a tall, tall white once.
Mm-hmm.
But I could not focus on his face.
No, they
Uh,
usually can't on those. I
yeah,
don't know why, but
but I
um,
loved him. He was so wise and very kind and just the epitome of wisdom and grace. And I asked
and
him,
uh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I said, how will I know if I see you again? And he
Uh-huh.
says, well, you'll know because you'll have to look up to me. That has a kind of a double meaning to it, but I think he was meaning, you'll have to physically,
Right.
crane your head. He was
Right.
8 feet tall.
Hmm. And I do believe that those are more um, spiritually developed beings. I believe that those are the ones that are closer to what we call the creator or the divine
I,
source.
yeah, the
Um,
feeling of being next to him was unlike anything.
yeah, it's very calming, very, very loving type of energy. And no matter where they are, you could feel them coming in. You can feel their presence, and it's very
Yeah,
nice.
I loved it. He
Yeah.
said, would you like to look around? I said, yeah. He took me into another room. And this was so cool because, I've interviewed so many people.
Right.
And here I am, and I'm looking at the walls. I'm like, well, this isn't quite how I imagined it. Yeah, they do curve into the floor. I kind of was picturing them round like an egg. No, the walls were actually straight,
Uh-huh.
but they did curve in, and they
Uh-huh.
had this really interesting texture to them. But we went into this other room, and he said, look.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned the wall transparent.
Right.
And that was so cool because I have heard people tell me about this. And we
Mm.
were underwater. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. And I'm like,
Yes.
well, how do you power this thing? Show me that. And he took me to another place,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an instrument there. It looked like slats in a furnace, sort of. And I was trying to focus on it. I wasn't getting the full picture,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really cool. It was very simple, streamlined. no moving parts that I could see.
Right.
But really
Yeah.
cool. I saw him twice.
Very good. Very good. So you definitely are super special, as they say, because from what I've been told is that those that will be doing healing, special healing, or their job is special healing, will get to see them. So
Yeah, it's
congrats.
all about healing.
Yes, it's all about healing.
People are like, what's the ET agenda? Healing.
Healing.
If they pull you on board,
Yes.
it's very common to be physically examined, and people are freaking out like, this is so scary. They're experimenting on me. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not nefarious. They're not here to hurt or scare. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of fear and disinformation. It's all about healing. That's why I
Yes.
wrote my first book about it, 100 cases.
Mm-hmm.
From all over the world, reaching back 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now put out another book, The Healing Power of UFOs, 300 cases. I can
Wonderful.
prove their agenda by firsthand cases. People are
Wonderful.
speculating, no, this is why they're here. It's to eat you and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay,
They could eat us without even appearing to us.
show me a case, because I can show you 300 that
Right.
say otherwise.
Very true. I believe they're here for healing, to help us ascend, to help us understand reality, the true reality, and to just help us evolve so we can then go someplace else and help whatever place that is, or whatever beings are there.
Yeah.
So
I started to notice that with contactees, because I would
mhm.
ask them, like, have you had any psychic experiences? Yes. Every one of them, without exception almost. It's the rule rather than the
Yeah.
exception. And it became clear to me that this is another main ET agenda.
Hmm.
Exactly what you said, to facilitate, to help. They're
Hmm.
not doing it to you, you're doing it.
Hmm.
But they will help you to awaken
Right.
your, and I'm not going to call them supernatural abilities. I prefer the term you said, gifts,
Yes.
which we all have,
Exactly. We're all born with them.
but
It's just
it's
whether
natural.
we're right. It's whether we're willing to work with them, open it up, trust it, just surrender to it, like you said,
Yeah. Embrace it.
embrace
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So now tell us about your YouTube channel. What do you have on there?
Yeah. I had a friend who's like, why don't you have a YouTube channel? I'm like, oh gosh, I'm busy writing the books and I'm keeping busy with doing all these podcasting, and I don't know if I have time. He's like, you need to do this,
Right.
because you can reach a lot of people that way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you would do really well. I'm like, oh, okay. And it was a steep learning curve, as computers are.
Yes.
But I had fun with it, and I just kind of, let's just do this, because if I can reach people, that's awesome.
Right.
And I started my little YouTube channel, and it took off pretty quick.
Good.
And I would just basically start putting out my research,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone has time to read books these days,
Nah.
and especially the younger generation uh, really prefer these a different type of media, which is
Right.
fine.
Right.
And so, people can't afford a lot of stuff.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
Devastating, and it's
Yes.
not right.
Yes.
So this was a way to reach people without having them needing to pay.
Right. Right.
Because a book, while it only costs $5 or whatever, 20,
Mm-hmm.
is
Right.
still a barrier for some people.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're a fast reader, you're done with that in a week or whatever, or a couple of days, and then okay,
Now what?
now what?
Yeah.
So it's good, and they could watch it over and over and over.
Yeah, and I love doing the YouTube stuff, because
Yes.
you get to spread more information visually
Mm-hmm.
as well. I put
Mm-hmm.
out one about my own out-of-body experiences, and didn't really advertise it, because UFOs have lots of Facebook groups and stuff. But
Right.
the OBEs and psychic stuff, they do as well. It's just not quite as much.
Right.
And I thought, well, and you can only post so much before they'll kick you off. So, but
You
it did
could.
really well. And I'm still getting lots of comments on this one episode I did about my own experiences. I wrote a book too,
Okay.
the only autobiographical book, which I was quite nervous about because it's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff happens when you're OBE, which you basically don't talk about in, in
Mm-hmm.
public, I guess,
Right.
because
Right.
it can get very personal,
Yes.
involving all kinds of emotions and sensitive topics like
Mm-hmm.
sex and,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. But I laid it out. I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to be shy. I'm going to be just honest, and I think that was the right decision.
And it was healing. When you write it out and you face whatever fear it is, it becomes a healing tool for you.
Yeah, it absolutely strengthened my abilities to do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not quite to the point where I can just lay down and off I go, because I still work at it. Well, not even so much work. I just have to focus. I
Right.
really want to do it and focus on it. But it's so amazing the things you can do. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just about walking around and walking through walls and flying around the neighborhood. You can go to other planets.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to higher dimensions. Got a
Mm-hmm.
whole list of things. 'Cause I've got every book I could find. I'm like, well, this person is rescuing lost souls. Let's try that. This
Why
person
not?
went to a healing temple. I didn't know there was such a thing. There
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn all about your past lives. I think the best for me was meeting deceased loved ones. That was my
Mm-hmm.
real, honest to God motivation, because I
Right.
needed to know my mom was okay.
Right.
And I knew she was. She'd visited me, but I wanted to go where she was,
Right.
not have her come down to me. I wanted to go there.
Mm-hmm.
I did, and it was life changing. I got to see the other side for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, and then, of course, many times, hundreds of times after.
Right.
And it's impossible to describe, as I'm sure you know, to people.
Oh yes. It's impossible to describe it.
It's
And
so beautiful. It
it is.
sparkles with light. Red is so much redder. It's so much more real. It's like high definition
Mm-hmm.
times 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And I do always like to say that it's when it's your right time, not it. You know, it is not for you to visit or be there by your own hands. It's when it's the right time for you. So you could go and you could travel, and while you're sleeping and all that, but don't do anything to cause a permanent decision.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I always, when I'm out there doing it, I get a feeling like time to go home. You
yeah,
can tell. And
yeah.
when my mom took me there, she's like, "You have to go back now." I'm like, "Do I really? I don't
Mhm.
mind staying here." She's like, "No, no,
It's not the right
no, no."
time. Not the right time.
No. And Robert Monroe has his institute, the Gateway Institute.
Hmm.
Well, this is kind of interesting. You can go there and learn how to do it. But he plays these hemisync tapes. I thought, well, let's try that. I'm kind of interested. I didn't like it. I
Mm.
felt like it was forcing it.
Mm.
And to me, here's the analogy: you can do this if you let it unfold naturally.
Right.
But if you're forcing, it's like trying to force open a flower to
E-
bloom,
Exactly.
which doesn't work. You have to
Mm.
nurture it, your abilities. And when you're ready, and I think at some point everybody will experience this.
Hmm.
Some people, it's not their goal in this lifetime.
Right.
They're there to do sports. They're there to help their family. They're there to, for whatever reason. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily a super spiritual lifetime.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I wouldn't worry about it. 'Cause my sister, she's like, I never have anything psychic happen. I'm like, well, you're living life on Earth. Trust me, that's psychic. You're
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I still think it's something people should definitely experience
Yes. Traveling. Yes.
because it's so life changing and so wonderful. And the benefit alone of knowing that there's life after death
Hmm.
reduces the fear, because we're steeped in fear here.
Hmm.
People's
Hmm.
lives are guided by fear of death.
Hmm.
It's a guiding force, and it shouldn't be. Love is the
Right.
guiding force.
Exactly. We
So
the way I look at it is we came from love and we're going back to love. Once
yeah,
we pass away, we go back to love. And what we do while we're here is what counts so we could evolve and learn and, ascend,
exactly.
ascend to a better place.
So many opportunities here.
Right.
People are like, "Gosh, I'm suffering." I'm like, "Well, let's look at what's happening to you." When my mom passing away was the worst experience.
Of course.
And it ended up being such a blessing because it changed me in so many wonderful ways.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking at all those, quote, bad things
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. I'm like, what
Mm-hmm.
opportunity has this provided me?
Exactly.
And they all had opportunities. They all had silver linings.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
people need to start looking at their lives in a different way and realize, you know what? You're going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's joy to be had in every day. There's
Exactly.
lessons in every day. There's things you can't do on the other side that are really only available here.
So true.
You
So
know,
true.
there's so many wonderful lessons. It's a tough school.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I heard a quote from Robert Monroe. He said, "People who graduate from Earth School are well respected on the other side." I'm like, I hope so, because I keep, coming back here and doing these tests, and I can't wait to graduate. Excited
Yes.
about it. And yeah, I
and
can
and
totally
move
see that.
and move on.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put up your website so people can find you there. And of course, you're all over the place. You're on Twitter or X, as they call it now. Let's see, you're on Facebook. And not to worry, guys. Well, we'll make sure we'll put all this in the description also so you can find it when you look at this again because you want to look at this show again. So, is there anything else? We're coming kind of to the end. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Just a big thank you to you and to everyone listening. And I would say, don't believe our lying governments on the UFO subject. Look to yourself
Mm-hmm.
to find the truth about things. Look to the contactees. Ask your family, your friends, your coworkers. If you're
Yes.
skeptical, I think you'll get a shock. Allow love and truth to guide your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we're immortal beings. Have
Mm-hmm.
fun. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's what I would leave people with. Just have fun. You're okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Preston. This is great. I really appreciate you coming on and being so enlightened. And, I'm sure that people are now going to be reaching out to you because there's going to be people with experiences that don't know what to do with it. And now you just gave them a platform to share their experiences. All right. Thank you. Hold on for a second. And as always, many blessings. And remember, we love you. Bye.